Pues ya hemos llegado a nuestro cuarto programa de temporada. Es un gran placer cada semana seguir haciendo música, no lo saben ustedes cuánto. Y en esta semana vamos a seguir con el leitmotiv de Beethoven, con Javier Perianes, además uno de nuestros grandes pianistas, y con un gran compositor que hemos visitado en las últimas temporadas en alguna ocasión, que es Charles Ives, compositor norteamericano, y de las dos cosas, pero también sobre todo de Ives, porque sabemos que es un compositor con el que Erik Nielsen siente especial afinidad. Hablaremos de este programa con él, con nuestro maestro Erik Nielsen. Bienvenido. ¿Qué tal todo? ¿Va bien los ensayos?
Sí.
Charles Ives, ¿qué significa la música de Ives para ti? Y en concreto esta sinfonía de Camp Meeting.
The Camp Meeting is a idea. It was a time in the United States. There was no United States. It was North America, and there were no churches, and so people would come together and meet and camp, and they would celebrate. They would, of course, go to church celebrate their religion, celebrate eating, etc. But the thing about Ives, it's very important that he calls this symphony the Camp Meeting, because the whole genesis of the symphony is based on 6 very particular hymns that you would sing in church. So everybody would recognize these hymns. But of course what Ives does, Ives is a complicated composer, and so he takes little parts of each hymn, and how he combines it's really an incredible piece of music. How he's you have the feeling that there's one part of a congregation maybe here singing something, and another part somewhere else, very distant, singing another hymn, and he brings this together. The piece was originally organ preludes. Ives was an organist, and he was an organist in New York City for a long time, and these originally were preludes that he kind of composed for the organ, and then later he transferred it to symphonic writing. It's we have only 7 wind instruments, so when the whole corona started happening, I thought this would be an ideal piece for this time to get to perform it, because again it's a slightly small. It was performed, the premiere of it was in New York City in Carnegie Hall, in the small hall
With Gustav Mahler.
No. Gustav Mahler, he's interesting because Gustav Mahler, we are missing a score of the from the manuscript of the score. Gustav Mahler was very interested in the piece and took it. He went to Austria and he died. He died. But doesn't that say something about Charles Ives when Gustav Mahler was interested in the piece and wanted to see the piece? And again, because Mother Nature, he died, and we don't have this extra score, so it also makes it very difficult for the to get to the real what did Ives actually write, because we're missing this manuscript. Of course, we have some of his students, and Lou Harrison, Henry Cowell, very important American composers. They also help create the symphony and put it together, so we have a good idea what the symphony is.
Ya ven, una obra que funciona como un mosaico, ¿no? De esos himnos que conocen los norteamericanos, esos himnos populares, algunos de iglesia y otros populares que conocen los norteamericanos, y que tardó mucho tiempo en ser estrenada. The premiere was far away from
much later,
in like 30 years later.
40, yeah. This was, and it won the Pulitzer Prize in the United States. I mean, it was people recognized. Oh my, Ives. He spent most of his life in selling insurance. He wasn't composing music. He was like Rossini. Rossini stopped and was a cook, and Ives. But there's just something fascinating about his music, and again, he had a lot of respect from the composers who moved to the United States, Schoenberg, Stravinsky. When people talked about Ives, they knew that this was a person. The problem with composers, when you talk about nationality, is you have the feeling that everybody has to be represented. We have to have an American, we have to have a Sibelius, Finland, we have to have Carl Nielsen, Denmark, and this. But he's not just some American, he's a very fine, interesting music that it's very hard to put him in the history. But again, if you look at the 4 symphonies, the first symphony is very close, Dvorak, Tchaikovsky, it's very classical. The second, he starts to find his own voice because he uses American songs, and he starts putting, now the third, he really does more in hymns, and then in the fourth is the one where he just puts it all. together, and it's very complicated music, but he finds his voice over those just 4 symphonies. He's like Brahms, you know?
Sí.
The other thing about the Ives, which was for me so important, was, you know, last week we had the American election, and so when we were doing the planning and I saw this November week, I thought, this is a chance to experience what is America, what are the ideas in the culture. It's not about an election, it's not about anything. I just felt it was a chance to celebrate the American culture, or we could have had a requiem this week if the election maybe went the other way. Look, that's your own feeling. But I felt that for my own soul, for this cleansing, this moment of just finally saying, going to the essence of what is American music and what is American culture, and that was important to me with the Ives. You know?
Sí. Bueno, pues es una oportunidad, además, como comentaba el maestro, con una obra que tiene una plantilla más reducida y que nos da, ahora que necesitamos más espacio para tocar con más distanciamiento, es la oportunidad perfecta para escucharla por primera vez por la orquesta. Y Javier Perianes, que no nos visita por primera vez, él ya tocó con nosotros hace años, después estuvimos en la quincena musical de Donostiarra hace poquitos meses con él haciendo 2 conciertos de Mozart, el 20 y el 21, 2 joyas, y ahora viene con el Emperador de Beethoven, que es, bueno, como otro tótem del mundo pianístico. What should we expect from Javier Perianes in this repertoire?
First of all, we're so happy to do this because we suffered so much in April and May and in the lockdown. Javier was supposed to come and play in June, and we were very lucky that he had the time to come.
To reschedule the concert.
Yes, for our Abano he's able to come is just luxury, and he's coming to play the Emperor, and it's I mean he's one of the best Spanish pianists that is around. I said last time his recording of Debussy and Chopin, I think I've heard it 10 times. It's just such incredible. He's such an incredible pianist, and with this symphony, I mean the Emperor. Glenn Gould said the Emperor Concerto is the continuation of the Eroica Symphony, and I like that very much. You have this E flat major that it becomes the Emperor somehow. So I think it's good not to put it in the piano concerto, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but to think of it more in this symphonic symphony 1, 2, 3, and then there's the Emperor right there fitting in. Yeah.
Bueno, pues ya lo veis, tendremos el interés de la música de Charles Ives con ese canto a la vida y a la celebración, que es su tercera sinfonía, y Javier Perianes con el Emperador de Beethoven. Grandísima oportunidad para escuchar de nuevo a nuestro querido pianista. Estáis todos invitados, ya sabéis, jueves a las 12 del mediodía, 7:30 de la tarde, viernes a las 5 de la tarde, 7:30 de la tarde. Os esperamos.